Hello and welcome, and today we're talking about bone health. It's a continuation from last week, and I want to talk about nutrition and bone health today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam. I'm a nutritional therapist, and my aim is to help women get through these mid-years, the perimenopause and menopause, and into older age as easily and painlessly as possible. It's important to me, having been through the menopause, and I want to share what I learn with others as much as anything. And as I said last week, bone health is one of those things we don't really think about until perhaps we get a break and we get a diagnosis of osteopenia, which is a precursor to osteoporosis. And there's a lot that surrounds our bone health and things that we can do. And so I've broken it down. Today I'm going to speak about the food. Because it is quite important that we appreciate that our diets can impact our bones. So I've done a bit of research. I'd love to do more. It's absolutely fascinating. There is perhaps not enough research in certain areas, so things one might assume because there is no actual research to show otherwise. But in general, so I'm going to start off with the foods that can be supportive, and it may surprise you I'm starting off with protein. Now, protein isn't always highlighted as a bone supportive food, but all our tissues have a base of protein, and bones are no exception to that. And so we need a good source of protein regularly. And keeping this succinct for those busy women, I'm not going to go into great detail. There are others who explain this so much better than me when it comes to the science. But the thought is that we need around about 1.6 grams per kilogram of weight per day of good protein. That's assuming you're in good health. If you're not in good health, or you're underweight, or maybe possibly overweight, you may need to adjust it. So if you're not fully healthy, you may need more. And the suggestion was 2 to 2.2 kilograms per 2 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And it's finding what works for you. I'd always start on the lower end with anything that I'm changing, just to enable the body to adjust. But when it comes to the type of protein to include, we're looking at predominantly the best ones, still sources of animal produce, but grass-fed, as close to nature as possible. So wild-caught fish, wild game, grass-fed meats like beef, sheep, and pork, basically, the lamb and pork. When we feed them on grain, they can increase their inflammation in these animals, and it's not ideal. So as good sources as possible. But again, there are sources of protein in the vegetarian world, vegetables, and you need to be aware of the content of protein. You may need slightly more to get to the right level. But protein shouldn't be underestimated. It's incredibly important. So ensuring you've got eggs are good. I'm going to talk about dairy as well shortly, so we'll go into that. Now, it's always important. There are concerns about eating certain amounts of meat. Can it be problematic for the kidneys? In general, it's been found that no, it's not an issue. But if you have a kidney problem, it could be. And I think, therefore, if you've got any health issue, you do need to be cautious, and you do need to talk to your medical professional to get their guidance if you want to make any changes. It's just erring on the side of caution all the time. The body can respond, even to good changes, it can respond negatively initially because it's a bit of a shock, and the body has to adjust. So taking it cautiously, getting advice, particularly if you're not in full health, is terribly important on any level. There's a suggestion as well that it's good to track your protein. Now, I did a video on protein partway through last year. I'll put the link in the description below, so if you want to go back and listen to that, I talk more about the individual proteins that are available, so that might be useful. I also want to mention phytoestrogens. So these are plant estrogens, and they can provide us with, they act very closely to our normal human estrogen, and we respond to them very well. So if we're low in estrogen or too high in estrogen, phytoestrogens can be utilised by the body to just balance it out a bit. So they can be incredibly useful. Now, I have just looked this morning because I hadn't looked for research, but I have found a paper that's looked at loads of research papers on the use of phytoestrogens for bone health, specifically on the bone density and protection at any stage in life, and they've been shown to give a positive effect. So phytoestrogens are found in plant foods, phyto being plants, and the one that's at the top of the list is soy, so tofu, and we find fermented ones are better. But again, with tofu, the soybean crop is genetically modified in many instances, so looking for organic is the best there. So including that is a good idea. And then we've got things like flax seeds. So now I use flax seeds regularly. I sprinkle them into my breakfast. I put them in with my berries and with my fermented yogurt, and I include them for so many benefits with flax seeds. But the phytoestrogens in there are really helpful for hormone modulation. And we know, just to recap, that when our estrogen drops, our bone density can be impaired as a result. So the bone tissue has receptors for estrogen in there, so it's very clear it utilises estrogen as part of the bone structure, the whole way it sort of breaks down and rebuilds bone. So it is important. What else have we got? Sesame seeds. Now they're also a good source of calcium. So they're quite a useful addition to sprinkling on salads or on dishes, in stir fries, even on your porridge or whatever it might be you're having. Oats also have some phytoestrogens. What else did I list? I put down quite a few foods. Of course, chickpeas, legumes. Now here we've got a little bit of a question. They also contain legumes. These are beans and pulses, like lentils. They can be anti-nutrients, which means they bind to compounds in our body, minerals for instance, and take them out of our body instead of leaving them in there. So they need to be well prepared, so soaked properly and cooked properly to reduce those the potential impact. But they can be a good source of fibre as well, and lots of other benefits to them. Now, when I get questions in my head about, is this a good thing or isn't it, I often think about the blue zones, and I've mentioned them in past videos, and they're the areas of the world where people live to 100 without medication as a regular thing. It's quite common within their communities. There's many things that seem to be that impact that longevity and that health span. But when it comes to the diets, many of these people, in fact all of them, eat about a cup of some form of bean per day. So it could be soybeans, or it could be flava beans, all sorts around the world. Each of these areas have their own sort of preferred bean that they grow. And so that's really quite important to appreciate. So the one thing I haven't looked recently actually, and I haven't looked for this particular video, and I ought to have done, is any research on the blue zones with the ladies and osteoporosis. I keep meaning to, I've looked at how they fare through the menopausal years before, and I can't find any information on it. And as they're not on medication, I'm assuming they get through the menopause without any difficulty, and they live in all sorts of climates. So that's interesting. I'd like to know more about that. So clearly whatever they're doing does seem to be supportive from a hormonal point of view, and therefore also it would appear from a bone density point of view. There is actually there are some phytoestrogens in coffee, tea, cocoa, and would you believe it, wine. Now, I wouldn't recommend that because there's so many downsides to alcohol. But a cup of coffee a day seems to be on the plus side. Herbs have some. Fruits and vegetables we're going to come to. In fact, we'll talk about fruits and vegetables now. Whole foods, those foods, they have so many different nutrients. They have a lot of the minerals that we need for bone health. So they're full of things like calcium and magnesium and potassium, B6, boron. So there's a number of these fruits and vegetables that are particularly good. And the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli and cauliflower, are very good as all-rounders for general health anyway. And I find this when I recommend a particular way of eating, and it seems to be the same way of eating in so many different situations and conditions, and there's various different reasons why. You know, it could be broccoli has anti-cancer benefits, and longevity benefits and bone benefits. They have tremendous support to the human body, which is lovely to know. Let me just find my veggies. I've got, yes, broccoli, cauliflower, even lettuce, anything sort of green. You've got lots of potassium in the greens, lots of magnesium. We need those in our bone. You've got the folate as well. Vitamin K, yes, very important, helps us deposit calcium into the bones instead of elsewhere. Calcium is used throughout the body. It helps with the muscle spasm and the heartbeat. And it's not just for bone, but we store it in bone. So it is for bone density. But we need flexibility in the bones, so we need more than just the calcium. What else have we got? Mushrooms. These are really good. Apart from the beta-glucans, they can provide us with some vitamin D, most of which we get from the sunlight. But if you put your mushrooms on the windowsill in some sun, they will absorb sun and produce more vitamin D. And vitamin D actually is a hormone, and it's really important for our bone health, our immunity, and all sorts of other processes in the body. So an important one. So getting some good sunshine when weather permits is really useful too. Fruits, apples, berries, bananas, prunes even. Again, you've got potassium, vitamins K, boron. You've also got good fibres in these. And one thing I did come across was eating some of these foods is very much, to get the benefits, is very much reliant on good gut bacteria. So we're supporting the gut bacteria as well when we're eating a lot of these foods. So there's so many nuances with this. It's not just you want the mineral for this, it's supporting this as well and that, and helps us get rid of toxins and all this sort of stuff. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, yes, there's so many good ones. Berries, I haven't mentioned berries, very good as well. Look for the best quality you can, organic where possible, so that you don't take on board toxins for when these crops are often sprayed, and those toxins can be detrimental. We store a lot of toxins in our fat cells for safety, but we can also deposit some toxic material into our bones for safety, and that can actually be quite damaging to the bone as well. So we want to reduce that toxic load as well as support the bone rebuilding mechanisms. And I want to talk a little bit about dairy. Now, dairy is one of those food groups that there's always so many questions about it. I've got my doggies here. One's just growling a bit. Why are you growling? So that's a warning. She might bark at something. Dairy. The Milk Marketing Board in the UK did a fabulous job of promoting dairy way back, probably in the 70s, promoting it for bone health, calcium. It's the best source of calcium, we were told. It isn't necessarily the best source of calcium, but it is a good source of calcium. But many people are intolerant to dairy. And it could be the lactose, the sugar in dairy. It could be one of the proteins. There's casein 1 and A1 and A2. Many people can't tolerate casein A1, but are more tolerant of casein A2. So it can be a useful food from a bone perspective, better if it's fermented. So I make my own yogurt now, and I'm fermenting the milk and making yogurt, and I like to make Greek yogurt. That's my preference. So it's fermented. I use organic whole milk to do that. I haven't tried it with goat's milk yet actually, but goat's sheep milks tend to be casein A2, which is more tolerable to many people. So it's worth having a look at those. And they're cheeses as well. So when I buy cheese, I tend to buy goat's or sheep cheeses as a preference. Christmas, I'll go for Stilton, but as I live in Stilton country, I'm just in an area where within a few miles we've got 3 main producers of Stilton cheese, so very lucky. But I do have my favourite, which is the Colston Bassett Stilton. There you go, a little recommendation for your cheese. So dairy can be very useful actually, and one thing I haven't mentioned is these foods are also helpful for building muscle, and muscle and bone work obviously closely together, and the protein is really important for the muscle. And we also know we need to reduce our risk of falling and breaking a bone that way. And if we've got good muscle form and strength, and we've got the power so we can react quickly, we're less likely to fall. So this all adds up very beautifully together. And I will talk about exercise next week. I think that's a good time. But yeah, I've found some research was suggesting that there could be improvements within 3 months of reduction of hip fractures or fractures in general, bone fractures. But after 5 months, it's a clear improvement when people were eating some dairy protein, fermented preferably, I think it was. I haven't put enough notes there. So yogurt's a good one, cheeses we've mentioned, kefir of course. And I think they're really the main foods I wanted to mention today. So the protein, some dairy, the fermented dairy, and then the fruits and vegetables, the whole foods, and the phytoestrogens. So including those in your diet. So at breakfast I have berries, my Greek yogurt, my flax seeds. At the moment I'm adding a few oats, so I'm getting a little bit there as well. So I'm getting more than I thought I was. I'm getting some minerals from nuts and seeds I haven't mentioned today, so I'm getting some extra minerals from those. I have greens every day. I'm getting potassium and magnesium, probably some boron, and other K2 as well from the diet I tend to eat. And then I do make sure I have a good source of protein every day. And I haven't been weighing it or working out its actual protein content. I haven't done that since I did the protein video last year. I stopped measuring after a while. I kind of have an idea, but it's good sometimes. I recognise that although I thought I was low on protein, I was actually eating enough protein once I measured it over a week. So it's good to keep a track. Are you getting enough of these foods? And it's quite simple really. It is the same diet in many ways, just a different emphasis at different times. But if we have a variety of foods coming in through the fruits and vegetables, and not always, if you're always eating bananas, that's not a good idea. Change it up. Look at seasonal fruits and vegetables, what's on the market for the season. It's not so easy nowadays to be aware of seasonal vegetables and fruits, and good protein. And there's so much around this. There's so much that one could say, but I'm going to leave it at that today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you'll join me again next week. I'm going to continue this conversation, I think maybe another couple of weeks. I've got something in mind to do in relation to bone health. I've got to get it organised, and I want to see if I can film it as well, which could be of interest. I have to do it and find out, and then if it's all pretty good stuff, I will be sharing that with you, so that'll be an extra one at the end. So next week I want to talk about exercise, which is incredibly important, and thank you for joining me. If you like this video or this type of thing, please like and subscribe, share it with somebody who might benefit, and you can't start too soon when it comes to bone protection, so young women, men need it as well, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.